Okay, I think we're up and running and live now, and I just wanted to welcome you to the morning devotion here on June 18th, Thursday, June 18th, and good morning to everyone out there in social media world. Hi, Jane. See you on here watching. It's been a beautiful week so far, and it looks like we're in for some Indiana summer temperatures starting today. It's going to get nice and hot and sticky outside, so summer starts this weekend, so looking forward to that. So I was going to talk today just very briefly about fairness and then talk about endurance. And if you were here last weekend, you heard the story of how Jeff was feeling a little bit under the weather. And at the last minute, BJ had to make a phone call to the bullpen and call up Justin to preach that day. And you know, Justin's he's just an all-star, and he delivered on short notice. Well, on Monday, a similar thing happened. We were in our staff meeting, and Kent mentioned that there were some devotion slots available this week. And there was a brief discussion, and the end result is here I am, you know, a utility infielder at best. So sometimes life just isn't fair. And since life isn't fair sometimes, we sometimes have to endure and persevere. The first time I met my good friend Jeff Fall was about 20 years ago. He was a guest speaker at a leadership conference or dinner that I was attending, and he spoke about leadership, and he referenced this book. And this book is called The Endurance, and it's by Alfred Lansing. And it's just an incredible story about a ship called the Endurance and a adventurer known as Ernest Shackleton and his crew. And in short, it's a very long story that takes place over the course of a couple years. They go down. Antarctica was the last great wilderness at that time. It hadn't really been explored, and they were going down there to basically hike across the continent. And long story short, they end up getting down there, and the ice is really bad, and they get stuck in an ice floe that actually ends up crushing the ship and sinking it. And they live on the ice floe for a while. Then they get in their life rafts, and they get to another island that's just basically a big barren rock. But they end up surviving. There's a tremendous sea voyage where a group of them take off and head back to South Georges Island in the South Atlantic Ocean, and they end up getting rescued, and everybody survives. And it's just a tremendous story. And if you're not familiar with it, I would encourage you to maybe pick up that book sometime, or you can even. There's been a few made-for-TV movies done on it. The best one's called Shackleton's Captain, and it's told from the point of view of his captain, Frank Worsley. And it's just an amazing story of endurance by those men and getting everybody back home safe. And that all took place way back before World War I, back in like 1914. But I want to fast forward now to the year 1919 and just give you a little bit of history about our church here at Mount Gilead. Back in the mid 1980s, 1985 specifically, somebody had the foresight to put together this great little book, and they even spiral bound it and put all this history together of Mount Gilead Church, and it's very well done. It goes all the way back to kind of shows some pictures here of there was an original church building that was built. It was located kind of over in the area where Daniel's Market is located now. They're at the kind of the corner of Paddock Road and Hadley Road, and they were there for from 1835 to 1857 when they built this white building, which was located over here off of Kitchen Road, kind of at the corner of Kitchen Road and Spring Lake Road today. And then they built a brick building next to it in 1919. That's what we're going to talk about here in a bit. And then in 1978, they tore that building down and they built the old church building in 1978, and then we moved over across the street to our current location around the year 2000. But what I wanted to share with you was in this book, there is this one page right here. It's kind of hard to see there on the screen, but it's actually a page out of the Indianapolis Star, and that's a article that was written on Saturday, October 25th of 1919. And what was going on that day was they were auctioning off the old building to raise money for the new building that was under construction. And it's just an amazing article when you go through and read this, and you can pick up some little tidbits in here about pumpkin pies, and there's a little story about a dog getting caught in a woman's hoop skirt dress. And what else is in there? People driving their Fords around. I mean, some things just don't change. I drive my Ford into church every day. Some other people around here drive Chevys and Dodges, but I'm like old school, still driving a Ford. But we can also see in this article that there's some pain and suffering going on. This is in 1919. World War I had just ended. It mentions that many had gone off to France, and going off to France meant hardship. It meant mustard gas. It meant trench warfare. It meant death. We see financial hardship taking place in the article. Plans were put on hold. They were having difficulty raising money. They were in the process of building the church building, and it got put on hold. And also in 1919, similar to today, the country was in the middle of the Spanish flu, which killed over 650,000 Americans. But as we know, because we're here today, they persevered. And one of the best examples in the Bible about perseverance and endurance is the Apostle Paul. He kind of goes on a rant in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. The Corinthian church had some false teachers in there, and he gets uses a lot of sarcasm in chapter 11. And then he goes in about detailing all the hardship that he had endured. And he saw some hardship that we can't even imagine today. I mean, we've seen some violent activity on TV, but it says in 2 Corinthians 11:24 and 11:25 that he received 40 less 1 stripes 5 times, and 3 times he was beaten with rods. Now that's 8 severe beatings. Those are scourgings. Jesus predicted that his disciples or his followers would be scourged. And you see that in Matthew chapter 10, verse 17. And those stripes, that is a beating that would just leave you completely bloodied. Some people died from it. It was a severe beating. It was something like we do not see today. And on top of that, we learn in chapter 12 that Paul was given an undisclosed thorn in the flesh, which he pleaded to God to remove. But whatever it was, if it was a physical ailment or if it was a person that tormented him, God decided he's going to have to endure that too. But I love how Paul wraps up the section in 2 Corinthians 12:10, and I'll close with this passage, and it says, "For the sake of Christ, then, I am content." And then he goes on and qualifies this, and he's not content because he's got a leather chair or a nice car or anything, but he is content with weaknesses, with insults, with hardships, with persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So have a great Thursday. I hope I get to see you in person this Sunday. We got services in the building at 9 and 11. Have a great day.